Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the English Globe. Today we are beginning a very special journey together. We are exploring the story of a man who rose from humble beginnings to the most powerful office in the world, the presidency of the United States. Our topic is From Dreams to Power, the rise of Barack Obama. His life story is not just about politics, but also about identity, hope, and persistence. It shows us how dreams, no matter how distant, can shape a future that once felt impossible.
Before we dive into this inspiring journey, we would kindly like to ask you, dear listeners, to support our work. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, The English Globe. By subscribing, you help us grow and continue bringing educational stories like this one. Also, don't forget to share your opinions in the comments. We would love to know what you think about Barack Obama's story and what part of his life inspires you the most.
Let us now begin where every great story begins: childhood. Barack Hussein Obama II was born on August 4, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii. His father was from Kenya, and his mother was from Kansas in the United States. This unique blend of cultures shaped his perspective from the very start. Growing up between different worlds gave him both challenges and strengths, teaching him to look at life through more than one lens, something that later defined his character as a leader.
His father, Barack Obama Sr., came from a small village in Kenya. He was a man of ambition, earning a scholarship that brought him to America to study. His mother, Ann Dunham, was a young woman from Kansas who valued education and curiosity. Though his parents' marriage did not last, the influence of both parents, as well as his grandparents, played an important role in Barack's early years. It was in this mixture of cultures, traditions, and values that young Barack began to form his identity.
Childhood was not always simple for him. When he was very young, his mother remarried, and the family moved to Indonesia. Living in Jakarta exposed him to poverty, inequality, and cultural differences. At the same time, it gave him a sense of the larger world outside America. He saw children who had very little, and this taught him empathy. Later, his mother brought him back to Hawaii, where he was raised mainly by his grandparents, who gave him stability and support.
His grandparents, Madeline and Stanley Dunham, provided Barack with a stable home and a good education. They believed strongly in the power of learning. His grandmother, who worked hard in a bank, was a role model of discipline and determination. His grandfather, who had served in the military, gave him a sense of responsibility. Surrounded by books, stories, and encouragement, Barack began to dream beyond the small circle of his daily life, even though he still struggled to fit in.
Growing up in Hawaii had its challenges. Barack was often one of the few children of color in his school. He sometimes felt like an outsider, not fully belonging to one group or the other. This sense of not fitting in pushed him to ask questions about himself, his place in society, and the meaning of identity. These struggles were not easy, but they gave him resilience. He learned to adapt, to listen, and to understand different perspectives, skills that later became crucial in politics.
As a teenager, Barack was curious but also faced moments of confusion. Like many young people, he tried to find his way and sometimes made mistakes. Yet, he always returned to the values his mother and grandparents had taught him, the belief that education could open doors and that character was built by choices. His search for identity was not just personal, it was also a search for meaning. These questions stayed with him and became part of the strength that defined his future.
By the time he graduated from high school, Barack was already showing signs of deep thought and ambition. Teachers remembered him as intelligent, but what stood out even more was his ability to listen and to bring people together. Even in small circles, he was respected for his thoughtful words. His story reminds us that greatness often begins quietly, in classrooms and family homes, with guidance from mentors and elders who believe in us. His journey was just beginning.
So, dear listeners, as we look back at Barack Obama's early life, we see a picture of contrasts. Hawaii and Indonesia, Kenya and Kansas, wealth and poverty, belonging and not belonging. All of these experiences shaped the boy who would one day stand on the world stage. His childhood was not a straight line, but a path filled with questions, challenges, and lessons. And it was this foundation that would later help him inspire millions around the world with a message of hope.
Education was the next big chapter in Barack Obama's life. School was not only about learning facts and lessons for him, but also about finding who he was and where he belonged. Growing up in Hawaii, he attended Punahou School, one of the best private schools in the state. While the education was excellent, Barack often felt different from many of his classmates. He was surrounded by privilege and wealth, while he came from a more modest background.
These differences often made him feel like an outsider, and that feeling was already part of his life since childhood. Being biracial in America during the 1970s was not easy. Barack's father was African, and his mother was white American, which placed him in a world where he didn't fully belong to either group. In school, he sometimes faced stereotypes, silent judgments, and moments of doubt. Yet, instead of letting these struggles weaken him, he began to question and reflect.
Like many teenagers, Barack experimented and tried to fit in. He sometimes lost focus on his studies and struggled with self-discipline. But even during those confusing times, a spark of curiosity burned inside him. He read books by African-American writers, studied history, and looked for voices that spoke to his own questions about identity. Books became his companions, teaching him that others had walked the same road before him and had found ways to rise above.
His mother, Anne, always reminded him of the value of education. She encouraged him to push past moments of doubt and to see school as a bridge to opportunity. His grandparents also believed strongly in education and made sure he had the tools he needed. These influences helped him regain focus. He learned that education was not just about passing exams, but about discovering ideas, developing character, and preparing himself to face the wider world.
After finishing high school, Barack decided to begin his higher education journey at Occidental College in Los Angeles. Moving to California was another turning point. It gave him distance from Hawaii and the chance to explore a new environment filled with diversity, energy, and political debate. At Occidental, he began to meet students from different walks of life, and he started to see himself not just as a young man searching for identity, but as someone who wanted to shape society.
Occidental College was where Barack started to take his first steps into political thinking. He listened to conversations about justice, race, and inequality. He became active in discussions, sometimes even giving short speeches. Friends and classmates began to notice his calm but powerful voice, his ability to explain ideas clearly, and his passion for fairness. These early moments gave him confidence. They also sparked the thought that perhaps his life's path would lead beyond personal success to public service.
After 2 years at Occidental, Barack transferred to Columbia University in New York City. The move was not easy. New York was a place of challenges, fast-paced life, and sharp contrasts. But it was also a city of opportunities, filled with libraries, movements, and ideas. At Columbia, Barack studied political science with a focus on international relations. He was deeply interested in how nations interacted, how leaders shaped policy, and how ordinary people were affected by those decisions.
Life in New York pushed him to grow. He lived in modest apartments, sometimes struggling with money, sometimes feeling the loneliness of being far from family. But it was in those quiet, difficult moments that his sense of purpose grew stronger. He often spent hours reading in libraries or walking through the city, thinking about inequality, race, and the American dream. These experiences connected his personal questions about identity to larger questions about society and justice.
Columbia also gave him a new kind of discipline. While in earlier years he had sometimes been distracted, in New York he became more focused. His studies were serious, and he began to see education as a tool for change. He understood that knowledge could not only shape his life, but could also give him the power to help others. His professors saw him as thoughtful and reflective, someone who wanted to understand both theory and the real struggles of people.
Another important part of his education during these years was his growing awareness of political and social issues. He followed events around the world and in the United States: wars, poverty, civil rights debates, and economic struggles. He saw how politics touched every aspect of life. These observations connected with his own experiences of difference and belonging. Slowly, a sense of mission began to form inside him, the idea that he could use his education and voice to make a difference.
Looking back, Barack's education was about much more than schools and universities. It was about identity, belonging, and direction. He struggled, questioned, and sometimes failed, but each challenge shaped him. By the time he graduated from Columbia in 1983, he had a clearer sense of who he was. He was not fully finished with his search, but he had gained strength, discipline, and the conviction that education could empower not only himself, but entire communities.
Dear listeners, Barack Obama's journey through education teaches us an important lesson. Learning is not just about books or exams. It is about shaping our character, asking deep questions, and preparing to take responsibility in the world. His struggles with identity, his curiosity, and his awareness of injustice all pushed him forward. These years at school and university laid the foundation for the leader he would later become. Education gave him the tools to turn dreams into direction.
After completing his studies at Columbia, Barack Obama continued searching for purpose. His time in New York gave him knowledge, but he still wanted to make a deeper impact. This search eventually led him to apply to Harvard Law School, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. For Barack, this was not just about gaining a degree. It was about equipping himself with the skills and authority to bring real change to communities he cared about.
When he entered Harvard Law School in 1988, he stood out immediately. Students described him as calm, thoughtful, and deeply intelligent. Unlike many who came with clear ambitions of wealth or powerful jobs, Barack carried with him a sense of mission. He had already worked as a community organizer in Chicago before starting law school, so he understood the struggles of ordinary families. That experience gave him a perspective that was rare among his peers.
At Harvard, Barack was known for asking insightful questions and listening carefully to others. He was not loud or aggressive in class discussions, but when he spoke, people paid attention. His classmates respected him not only for his sharp legal mind, but also for his humility. He treated everyone with respect, whether they agreed with him or not. This ability to connect with people and bring them together would become a powerful part of his leadership style.
One of the most significant moments of his Harvard years came in 1990, when he was elected the first Black president of the Harvard Law Review. The Law Review was one of the most respected legal journals in the country, and leading it was an enormous responsibility. The election itself was competitive and intense, with candidates from different backgrounds and ideologies. Barack's victory was historic, not just for him, but for the institution itself.
Becoming the first Black president of the Harvard Law Review was more than just a title. It was a symbol of change, progress, and possibility. For generations, no African American had held that position. His achievement inspired students of color across the United States, but more than that, it showed how his leadership style, listening, mediating, and respecting others, could win trust in one of the most competitive environments in the academic world.
The role required patience, negotiation, and vision. Barack was responsible for managing a large team of editors, balancing different opinions, and ensuring the journal maintained its high standards. He had to deal with conflicts, disagreements, and deadlines. But instead of letting stress overwhelm him, he approached problems with calm reasoning. Classmates said he had a talent for lowering tension in the room, finding compromises, and keeping everyone focused on the larger goal.
His leadership at the Law Review built his reputation as someone who could rise above division. In an environment where egos were strong and debates were intense, Barack managed to build respect across the spectrum. Conservative students, liberal students, and those in between admired his fairness. He showed that leadership was not about shouting the loudest, but about guiding people with wisdom, patience, and clarity. These lessons would stay with him for the rest of his career.
Beyond leadership, Harvard gave Barack access to important networks. He met professors who later became mentors, friends who shared his vision, and colleagues who would play roles in his future path. The prestige of Harvard also opened doors for him, giving him credibility in the legal and political world. Yet, despite the opportunities, Barack remained grounded. He did not let the prestige of Harvard change his core values or his sense of responsibility.
While his classmates dreamed of careers in big law firms or corporate offices, Barack thought about how law could serve communities. He wanted to use his degree not just for personal gain, but to fight inequality and give people a voice. That sense of purpose impressed many around him. Even in an environment focused on individual achievement, he carried a vision that was bigger than himself. It was this balance of ambition and humility that made him stand out.
Barack's time at Harvard also built his confidence. He realized that he could succeed in one of the toughest academic environments in the world. For someone who once questioned where he belonged, this was powerful. Leading the law review gave him evidence that his voice mattered, that he could inspire others, and that he could handle pressure at the highest level. It was no longer just about dreams. It was about proving to himself that he was capable of great responsibility.
Looking back, these years at Harvard were not only about education, but about transformation. They turned Barack Obama from a young man still finding his way into a leader who could guide others. The lessons he learned about listening, respecting differences, and leading with integrity became the foundation of his political career. His time at Harvard Law School was the bridge between his search for identity and his rise as a leader ready to shape history.
Dear listeners, what stands out about this chapter is how leadership can grow not only from ambition, but from empathy and respect. Barack Obama's success at Harvard was not only about being smart, it was about being fair, calm, and committed to something larger than himself. By building trust, showing humility, and working hard, he gained both confidence and recognition. This period shaped the leader who would one day inspire millions around the world.
After graduating from Columbia, Barack Obama felt the weight of a big question. What was the purpose of his education? He had knowledge and ambition, but he wanted to connect it with real change. That search led him to Chicago in the mid-1980s. Unlike many of his peers who rushed into high-paying jobs, Barack chose a different road. He became a community organizer, working with churches and local leaders to improve the lives of struggling families.
Chicago at the time was a city full of contrasts. It had wealth in some areas but deep poverty in others, especially in neighborhoods affected by factory closures and unemployment. Many families faced crumbling housing, failing schools, and limited opportunities. Barack joined a group called the Developing Communities Project, where his job was to help residents fight for better conditions. He was only in his 20s, but he carried with him energy, compassion, and determination.
The work was not glamorous, and it certainly wasn't easy. He had no official power, no big salary, and no guarantee of success. Much of his job was about listening, going door to door, sitting in kitchens, attending church meetings, and hearing the concerns of people who felt ignored by the system. He listened to mothers worried about their children's education, fathers searching for jobs, and young people who felt trapped in cycles of poverty.
At first, many were skeptical of him. He was young, an outsider, and people had seen promises come and go without change. But Barack's strength was patience. He did not arrive with quick solutions. Instead, he built trust slowly, showing up consistently, respecting the voices of residents, and working alongside them. His ability to connect with people from different walks of life and to make them feel heard was what slowly turned doubt into trust.
One of his projects was helping to improve local schools. Families wanted better education for their children, but lacked the influence to push officials for change. Barack helped bring parents together, teaching them how to organize meetings, write letters, and demand accountability. These were small steps, but they gave communities a sense of power. He believed strongly that real change came from people working together, not from one person acting alone.
Another challenge he worked on was unemployment. When factories closed, entire neighborhoods suffered. People lost not only their income but also their sense of purpose. Barack helped organize job training programs and connected churches with organizations that could provide resources. He often reminded people that even small victories mattered, whether it was getting new funding for youth programs or repairing a broken playground. These wins gave communities hope and showed them that progress was possible.
Through this work, Barack learned lessons that no textbook could teach. He saw firsthand how policies affected families, how inequality limited opportunities, and how communities could rise when given support. He also learned that leadership was not about giving orders, but about empowering others. His role was not to speak for the people, but to help them find their own voices. This belief would later become central to his political philosophy.
The work also tested his resilience. There were many setbacks. Some projects failed, funding fell through, and not every campaign succeeded. There were times when Barack felt discouraged, wondering if the work really mattered. But he kept going because he saw the faces of the people depending on him. Every small success reminded him why he was there. These struggles gave him toughness, humility, and the understanding that change takes time and persistence.
Community organizing also gave Barack a deeper sense of belonging. For someone who had often felt like an outsider, Chicago became a place where he connected deeply with people. The churches, the neighborhoods, and the families he worked with gave him roots. He was no longer just the boy from Hawaii or the student from Columbia. He was part of a community. This sense of belonging fueled his desire to fight for justice on a larger stage.
Looking back, it is clear that these years were the foundation of his leadership. Without them, his later success in politics would not have been the same. Chicago taught him the importance of listening, of patience, of building coalitions. It taught him that leadership begins at the ground level, not in the spotlight. By working with ordinary people on their everyday struggles, Barack developed the empathy and strength that later defined his rise in national politics.
Dear listeners, the story of Barack Obama's years as a community organizer reminds us that real leadership often starts in the smallest places. It is not about fame or recognition, but about serving others. These experiences shaped his character, preparing him for challenges much greater than neighborhood projects. They taught him that dreams could only become power when rooted in people's voices. And it was this foundation that would carry him forward into public office. After years of working as a community organizer in Chicago, Barack Obama decided to take the next step. He realized that to create broader change, he needed to influence legislation directly. Politics offered a path to bring the voices of ordinary people into the halls of power. In 1996, he announced his candidacy for the Illinois State Senate. For many, it was the natural progression of his work. But for Barack, it was also a huge personal risk.
Running for office was no easy task. Barack was still relatively young, and he faced skepticism from established politicians and the public. Critics questioned his experience and ability to represent a diverse district. The campaign required long hours, from shaking hands on streets to attending local meetings and debates. Barack's approach was grounded in authenticity. He listened carefully to residents, sought to understand their concerns, and promised to advocate for real change, not empty rhetoric.
The campaign also faced financial challenges. Unlike some candidates who had wealthy donors, Barack relied on small contributions from ordinary citizens. His team emphasized grassroots support, believing that a campaign built on people's trust would be stronger than one fueled by money alone. This strategy taught him early lessons about political engagement, fundraising, and the importance of connecting personally with constituents.
Barack won his seat in the Illinois Senate in 1996, marking the beginning of his formal political career. Once in office, he worked tirelessly to address issues that mattered most to his community. Education, healthcare, and social justice were central to his legislative agenda. He introduced bills aimed at expanding health coverage for children, improving public schools, and reforming social services to reach underserved communities. Each initiative reflected his ongoing commitment to equity and fairness.
While his first years in the Senate were challenging, Barack quickly developed a reputation for diligence and integrity. He was known for being thorough in research, careful in debate, and honest in negotiation. Other lawmakers, even those from opposing parties, respected his intellect and ability to find compromise. His approach was different from many politicians who relied on rhetoric. Barack preferred evidence-based decisions, listening to experts, and considering the real impact of legislation on ordinary people.
One of his early achievements was the expansion of health services for low-income families. By collaborating with colleagues across party lines, he helped pass bills that increased access to healthcare for children and seniors. He also supported crime prevention initiatives that emphasized rehabilitation rather than punishment alone. These actions reflected his belief that laws should empower communities rather than penalize them, a philosophy shaped by his years organizing in Chicago.
Beyond legislation, Barack's time in the Illinois Senate strengthened his skills in leadership and public speaking. He learned to present complex issues in a way that citizens could understand. He also built alliances with colleagues, mentors, and community leaders, creating networks that would later support his national ambitions. These years were a laboratory for learning how to balance principle with pragmatism, and how to translate idealism into actionable policy.
Barack also faced criticism and political opposition, which tested his resolve. He encountered skepticism about his age, experience, and background. Yet, he persevered. Instead of retreating, he focused on results, letting his work speak for him. This strategy earned him credibility and the trust of both constituents and fellow lawmakers. His reputation as a thoughtful, solution-oriented politician grew steadily, laying the groundwork for larger ambitions.
By the time he completed his service in the Illinois Senate, Barack had not only gained legislative experience, but also a deeper understanding of political strategy, negotiation, and the importance of connecting with citizens. His work demonstrated that leadership is as much about service and listening as it is about power. These formative years in Illinois became a stepping stone to national politics, preparing him for challenges that would come later in Washington.
Dear listeners, Barack Obama's entry into the Illinois Senate shows that the path to leadership often begins with small, deliberate steps. His early campaigns, legislative work, and reputation building in Illinois taught him the value of patience, persistence, and ethical decision-making. These experiences were crucial in shaping the man who would one day run for the highest office in the United States, transforming his dreams into real influence.
By 2004, Barack Obama had built a solid foundation in Illinois politics, but the national stage was still distant. That changed when he was invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention. He was relatively unknown outside Illinois, yet the organizers recognized his talent, intellect, and inspiring story. For Barack, this was a unique opportunity to share his vision with millions of Americans and to introduce himself as a rising leader in the country.
The speech itself was historic. Barack focused on themes that resonated with the American people: unity, hope, and the belief in a shared future. He spoke not just as a politician, but as someone who understood ordinary struggles, who had grown up between cultures, and who believed in the potential of the country. His words painted a vision where people of all backgrounds could come together, overcome differences, and work toward common goals.
What made the speech powerful was its authenticity. Barack did not rely on empty slogans or political cliches. He told stories about his life, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he learned from his family and community. Listeners could feel the sincerity in his voice, the calm confidence, and the personal connection he created. It was a rare moment when rhetoric met reality, and the audience responded with enthusiasm and admiration.
The impact of the speech was immediate. Political analysts praised his eloquence, journalists highlighted his charisma, and millions of viewers felt inspired by his message. Suddenly, a young senator from Illinois was on the national map. His speech was shared widely, covered on television, and discussed across the country. It demonstrated that words, when delivered with passion and truth, could move people and open doors to new opportunities.
Beyond personal recognition, the speech reflected Barack's core philosophy. He emphasized that no single person can achieve change alone. He spoke of collective responsibility, community action, and the power of ordinary citizens to influence their nation. These ideas echoed the lessons he had learned as a community organizer in Chicago and as a legislator in Illinois. The speech was not just inspiring, it was a statement of his leadership style and vision.
The 2004 speech also highlighted his understanding of hope as a political and personal force. Barack encouraged Americans to believe that change was possible, even in difficult times. He connected personal experience with national ideals, demonstrating that progress requires both individual effort and collective action. The speech showed that leadership could be inclusive, motivating, and grounded in reality rather than just ambition.
Many observers later noted that this moment changed the trajectory of his career. Before the convention, Barack was largely unknown to most Americans. After the speech, he became a symbol of new possibilities in American politics. It also inspired young people and minorities across the country, showing them that leadership and influence were not limited by background, race, or age. The speech planted the seeds for his future presidential campaigns.
Another remarkable aspect of the speech was how he balanced optimism with realism. He acknowledged the challenges the country faced, inequality, war, and social divisions, but did not dwell on despair. Instead, he offered a vision of collective effort and shared responsibility. This balance between hope and practical solutions became a hallmark of his leadership style, demonstrating that he could inspire while remaining credible and thoughtful.
The Democratic Convention speech also strengthened his political network. Party leaders, influencers, and activists began to see him as a unifying figure capable of bridging divides. His ability to connect with a wide audience, speak with clarity, and convey empathy elevated his status within the party. It gave him credibility, not just as a promising young politician, but as someone ready to consider national leadership roles in the future.
Dear listeners, Barack Obama's 2004 speech reminds us of the power of words, vision, and authenticity. It was a turning point that transformed him from a state senator into a national figure. By combining personal narrative, hope, and inclusiveness, he demonstrated how leadership begins with connecting hearts and minds. This moment was more than a speech. It was the beginning of a journey that would eventually lead him to the highest office in the United States.
After gaining recognition from his historic speech at the Democratic National Convention, Barack Obama decided to run for the U.S. Senate in 2004. This campaign marked a major step in his political journey, moving from state-level influence to a national platform. For many, it seemed ambitious, but for Barack, it was a logical next step. He had a vision of representing not only Illinois, but also the principles of fairness, hope, and progress that had guided his career.
The campaign was both exciting and challenging. Illinois is a large state with diverse communities, each with unique concerns and priorities. Barack traveled extensively, meeting residents from Chicago's urban neighborhoods to small towns in the heartland. What set him apart was his authenticity. People sensed that he genuinely cared about their struggles, not just their votes. He listened more than he spoke at first, learning about the hopes, fears, and frustrations of ordinary citizens.
Obama's approach to campaigning was different from many politicians at the time. He avoided aggressive rhetoric or personal attacks, focusing instead on common goals and shared values. He emphasized education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. By connecting these issues to his personal story and the story of ordinary Americans, he inspired hope. People began to see him as a candidate who could bridge divides, someone who understood real-life challenges rather than abstract policy debates.
One of the most remarkable aspects of his Senate campaign was his use of grassroots support. Volunteers played a key role, spreading his message in communities across the state. Barack engaged with constituents through town halls, community meetings, and local events, showing that leadership involves listening as much as speaking. His humility and empathy made voters feel valued, and his ability to articulate a positive vision energized both young people and seasoned voters alike.
His authenticity was reinforced by his personal story. Growing up between cultures, experiencing challenges as a biracial child, and working with struggling communities gave him a unique perspective. He could speak to both the hopes and frustrations of citizens. Instead of relying on promises that were impossible to keep, he highlighted achievable goals and a vision for collective effort. This honesty resonated deeply with people who were tired of empty political rhetoric.
Obama also emphasized unity in a politically divided environment. He spoke about the importance of cooperation across party lines, respecting differences, and finding common ground. These messages were not just political strategy, they reflected the values he had learned in Chicago and during his years in the Illinois Senate. Voters responded positively to his ability to inspire without creating division, and his approach became a model for modern political campaigning.
The 2004 Senate campaign also increased his visibility on the national stage. Political analysts and media outlets began to highlight his eloquence, charisma, and ability to connect with diverse audiences. What had started as a state-level race quickly gained attention across the country. People began to see him as a rising star, a politician whose message of hope and change could resonate far beyond Illinois. The campaign transformed him into a figure of national significance.
Beyond public perception, the campaign taught Barack important lessons about strategy and resilience. Running statewide required planning, organization, and decision-making under pressure. He learned how to navigate complex political networks, manage staff, and communicate effectively with large and diverse populations. Each challenge strengthened his confidence and prepared him for future leadership roles, showing that personal dedication combined with careful strategy can lead to remarkable outcomes.
By the time the votes were counted, Barack Obama won the U.S. Senate seat by a significant margin. His victory was celebrated not just as a political success, but as the rise of a new kind of leadership, one grounded in empathy, authenticity, and inspiration. He had demonstrated that connecting with people's hearts and minds can be just as powerful as political experience or party support. The win marked the beginning of his journey toward national prominence.
Dear listeners, Barack Obama's road to the U.S. Senate teaches an important lesson about leadership. Authenticity, empathy, and inspiration can transform campaigns and communities alike. His ability to listen, understand, and communicate resonated deeply with voters. At this stage, his influence was no longer confined to Illinois. He had become a national figure whose vision of unity and hope would soon prepare him for even greater challenges.
Barack Obama's decision to run for president in 2008 marked one of the most ambitious moves in modern American politics. Building on his success in Illinois and his growing national profile, he faced the immense challenge of competing against seasoned politicians with years of experience on the national stage. Yet, Obama's campaign strategy was rooted in the same principles that had guided him throughout his life: authenticity, listening to people, and inspiring hope.
The campaign began with long odds. Many doubted that a relatively young senator could secure the Democratic nomination, especially against candidates with greater political experience. Yet, Obama's team focused on grassroots engagement, understanding that mobilizing ordinary citizens could outweigh traditional political advantages. Volunteers, often young and energetic, became the backbone of a movement that emphasized personal connections and community involvement.
One of the central themes of the 2008 campaign was hope and change. Obama spoke not just of policy, but of vision, urging Americans to believe that the nation could overcome divisions and challenges. He addressed the economic crisis, health care, and social inequality with a message that combined practical solutions with inspiration. His speeches emphasized unity rather than polarization, appealing to people across political and cultural lines.
The campaign also relied on innovative use of technology. Obama's team pioneered social media engagement, using online platforms to reach supporters, organize events, and fundraise small contributions. This approach connected millions of Americans, especially young voters, to the campaign in ways that had never been done before. It transformed political participation, showing that grassroots involvement could coexist with national-level strategy.
Traveling across the country, Obama met with diverse communities, from urban centers to rural towns. He listened carefully, learning the concerns of voters who felt ignored by traditional politicians. His ability to connect on a personal level set him apart. People described his speeches as inspiring, his interactions as sincere, and his commitment as genuine. This combination of empathy, vision, and practical focus strengthened his appeal nationwide.
Despite these strengths, the campaign faced significant challenges. He was competing against Hillary Clinton, a former First Lady with decades of political experience and a powerful network. The primary battle was intense, requiring strategic messaging, careful negotiation, and resilience under pressure. Obama's team emphasized consistency, authenticity, and long-term vision, helping him navigate a race that many initially thought unwinnable.
Throughout the campaign, Obama emphasized inclusivity. He spoke about bridging racial, cultural, and generational divides, highlighting shared aspirations rather than differences. This approach resonated with many Americans who were looking for a leader capable of uniting the country. His message went beyond politics. It was about citizenship, responsibility, and the power of collective action. People felt that voting for Obama was not just a political choice, but a participation in shaping a hopeful future.
Fundraising was another remarkable aspect of the 2008 campaign. Unlike traditional campaigns that relied heavily on large donors, Obama's team encouraged small contributions from millions of Americans. This approach empowered ordinary citizens to feel invested in the process, creating a sense of ownership and collective effort. It also allowed the campaign to reach more voters directly, building enthusiasm that traditional fundraising methods often cannot achieve.
The primary season demonstrated Obama's ability to perform under pressure. He faced scrutiny from media, opponents, and voters, yet maintained composure and focus. He delivered speeches with clarity, wrote op-eds to explain his policy positions, and participated in debates with poise. Each appearance reinforced his image as a thoughtful, intelligent, and compassionate leader, capable of handling the complexities of national governance.
By the end of the primaries, Barack Obama secured the Democratic nomination. This achievement marked a historic moment, reflecting the effectiveness of his campaign strategy and the resonance of his message. His journey from a state senator to a national candidate had demonstrated that vision, authenticity, and hard work could overcome traditional political barriers. Americans were inspired not only by his policies, but by the story of his rise itself.
The general election campaign that followed was equally intense. Facing Republican candidate John McCain, Obama had to appeal to a broad coalition of voters, from urban centers to rural communities, from young people to older generations. He emphasized pragmatic solutions to the economic crisis, healthcare reforms, and international diplomacy, while continuing to inspire hope and unity. His speeches connected personal narratives to national challenges, showing that leadership is both practical and visionary.
The campaign also involved extensive debate preparation, policy discussions, and media appearances. Obama's calm demeanor and thoughtful answers contrasted with the tension of the election season. He emphasized transparency, accountability, and the importance of listening to citizens. His approach reassured voters that he was not only capable of leading, but also committed to ethical governance and the principle that government should serve the people.
Throughout the campaign, Obama's team maintained a focus on engagement and inclusion. Town halls, community meetings, and volunteer networks were central to reaching Americans directly. His message of unity, hope, and opportunity resonated strongly, creating enthusiasm that extended far beyond traditional political supporters. Millions of people felt involved in a movement that was bigger than any single candidate, transforming the way Americans participated in elections.
On November 4, 2008, the American people cast their votes. Barack Obama won the presidency in a historic election, becoming the first African-American president in U.S. history. The victory reflected years of preparation, grassroots work, public speaking, and political strategy. More importantly, it demonstrated the power of authenticity, vision, and connection. People voted not only for policies, but for hope, leadership, and the belief that positive change was possible.
Dear listeners, the 2008 presidential campaign teaches a profound lesson. Leadership is built on courage, authenticity, and the ability to connect with others. Barack Obama's journey shows that visionary ideas, combined with practical strategies and genuine empathy, can transform both politics and society. From state senator to national leader, his rise reminds us that commitment to service, listening, and hope can create a movement capable of reshaping history. When Barack Obama took office in January 2009, he inherited one of the most challenging periods in modern American history. The country faced a severe economic crisis, high unemployment, and financial instability. Globally, America was involved in conflicts overseas, and domestically, divisions were deepening. Yet Obama approached these challenges with calm determination, relying on the principles he had developed as a community organizer and legislator: listening, collaboration, and thoughtful decision-making.
One of his first priorities was addressing the economic collapse. The Great Recession had left millions without jobs and families struggling to make ends meet. Obama introduced the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, aimed at stimulating the economy through infrastructure projects, tax relief, and support for social programs. The goal was to save jobs, promote growth, and provide immediate relief to those hardest hit by the downturn, while also investing in long-term recovery.
Healthcare reform became another major focus. Millions of Americans lacked adequate health coverage, and rising costs created insecurity for families. Obama championed the Affordable Care Act, which expanded access to health care, prohibited denial of coverage for pre-existing conditions, and allowed young adults to remain on family insurance plans. The initiative faced intense political opposition, yet it demonstrated his commitment to social equity and the belief that government could provide meaningful support to citizens.
On the international front, Obama worked to rebuild America's alliances and global reputation. He emphasized diplomacy and multilateral engagement, contrasting sharply with previous approaches that relied heavily on unilateral action. Decisions such as withdrawing combat troops from Iraq, refocusing attention on Afghanistan, and negotiating international agreements reflected a strategic balance between military strength and diplomatic engagement. His approach aimed to position the U.S. as a collaborative global leader while prioritizing peace and stability.
Education reform was also central to his domestic agenda. Recognizing the long-term importance of quality education, Obama promoted policies that incentivized innovation in schools, supported teacher performance, and expanded access to higher education. Programs like Race to the Top encouraged states to adopt reforms that improved standards and outcomes. He believed that investing in education was essential not only for economic growth, but also for social mobility and equality, ensuring that every child could have the opportunity to succeed.
Obama faced extraordinary challenges, including political polarization, opposition in Congress, and global crises. The rise of partisan politics often made it difficult to pass legislation, and compromise was frequently met with criticism from both sides. Yet he navigated these obstacles with strategic patience. He emphasized dialogue, sought common ground where possible, and remained focused on long-term goals. This approach sometimes frustrated critics, but reflected his consistent philosophy of thoughtful, deliberate leadership.
In foreign policy, Obama faced multiple complex issues. The killing of Osama bin Laden in 2011 marked a pivotal moment in the fight against terrorism. At the same time, he pursued diplomatic solutions to ongoing conflicts, including nuclear negotiations with Iran and attempts to stabilize relations with key allies. His presidency demonstrated the delicate balance between military action, diplomacy, and domestic priorities, requiring careful judgment under intense global scrutiny.
Social progress was another hallmark of his presidency. Obama advocated for LGBTQ+ rights, culminating in the legalization of same-sex marriage nationwide, and he supported initiatives addressing climate change and environmental protection. His administration emphasized inclusivity, equality, and the protection of civil rights. These achievements highlighted his commitment to justice and reflected a vision of leadership that considered both immediate impact and long-term societal change.
Healthcare, economic recovery, education, social justice, and diplomacy illustrate the breadth of Obama's domestic and international priorities. Each achievement was met with resistance and criticism, yet he remained committed to principles rather than political expediency. His leadership style emphasized collaboration, communication, and empathy, demonstrating that effective governance requires both practical solutions and moral vision. He consistently sought to ensure that policies served the broad interests of the nation, not narrow constituencies.
The presidency also tested Obama's resilience and adaptability. Global crises, domestic opposition, and public scrutiny demanded patience, careful judgment, and consistent reflection. He frequently drew on lessons from his past, the importance of listening, building trust, and fostering collaboration. His early experiences in community organizing and Illinois politics proved invaluable, providing a foundation for decision-making under pressure and guiding him through challenges that affected millions of lives.
Dear listeners, Barack Obama's presidency exemplifies the complex nature of leadership. Achievements such as economic recovery efforts, healthcare reform, education initiatives, social progress, and diplomatic engagement were realized alongside immense challenges. His approach combined vision with practicality, empathy with strategy, and inspiration with action. The lessons from his presidency remind us that leadership is both about results and the integrity, patience, and courage required to navigate adversity. As Barack Obama left the White House in January 2017, the world reflected on the remarkable journey of a man who had once been a community organizer in Chicago. His legacy extends beyond policies and legislation. It is defined by the ideals he championed: hope, unity, equality, and perseverance. Obama transformed American politics, inspiring millions to believe that leadership is not only about power, but about service and empathy for others.
One of the most enduring aspects of his legacy is the example he set for future generations. Obama demonstrated that personal background, race, or age need not limit ambition. Through dedication, education, and connection with communities, he showed that leadership can emerge from humble beginnings. young people and marginalized groups around the world were inspired to engage in civic life, pursue their dreams, and advocate for change in their own societies.
His presidency also emphasized the importance of values in leadership. Decisions were guided not just by political advantage, but by principle, evidence, and ethics. From healthcare reform to economic recovery, from international diplomacy to civil rights advocacy, Obama's approach combined practicality with vision. He showed that effective leaders consider the long-term consequences of their actions, balancing immediate needs with broader societal impact.
Beyond policy, Obama's style of communication left a lasting mark. His ability to connect with people through storytelling, empathy, and clarity helped bridge divides and build trust. Whether addressing Congress, international audiences, or grassroots supporters, he demonstrated that words can inspire action and foster unity. His speeches often reflected lived experience, shared values, and a vision of inclusion that encouraged collaboration rather than conflict.
Another key part of his legacy is the emphasis on hope and optimism. Even in times of crisis, Obama urged citizens to believe in the possibility of change and improvement. This focus on hope was not naive. It was coupled with strategic thinking, planning, and persistent effort. He encouraged Americans to participate actively in democracy, emphasizing that meaningful change requires both vision and engagement at every level of society.
Obama also left an enduring impact on the global stage. His emphasis on diplomacy, multilateral engagement, and respect for international institutions strengthened America's relationships worldwide. He demonstrated that leadership is not only about national interest, but also about global responsibility. His efforts to negotiate peace, combat climate change, and address complex international challenges illustrated a commitment to ethical and thoughtful governance.
Domestically, his legacy includes efforts to expand opportunity and fairness. Initiatives in education, healthcare, and social equality sought to create pathways for those historically underserved. While not every goal was fully realized, the foundations he laid continue to influence policymakers and citizens alike. He showed that progress is incremental and that persistent, principled effort can gradually transform communities and societies over time.
Importantly, Obama's journey highlights the value of resilience. From his early days in Hawaii and Chicago to the national stage, he faced skepticism, opposition, and personal challenges. Yet, he remained focused, adaptable, and committed to his principles. His ability to navigate adversity with patience, intelligence, and empathy provides a blueprint for leadership that is grounded in both humility and courage.
For leaders today and tomorrow, Barack Obama's story serves as a reminder that true influence is built over time through service, listening, and connection. His life illustrates that dreams, when paired with action, perseverance, and ethical vision, can lead to transformative impact. Leadership is about more than holding office. It is about inspiring, empowering, and creating lasting change in the lives of others.
Dear listeners, as we reflect on Barack Obama's journey from dreams to power, we see that his legacy is a blend of achievements, lessons, and inspiration. He showed that leadership is rooted in empathy, integrity, and commitment to the common good. His life encourages us to pursue our own goals with purpose, serve others with dedication, and believe that even the highest aspirations are possible when guided by principle and hope.
In closing, Barack Obama's story is a testament to the power of vision, persistence, and authentic leadership. From community organizing in Chicago to the presidency of the United States, he exemplified how dreams can become reality when paired with dedication and moral courage. His legacy will continue to inspire future generations, reminding us that meaningful change is possible through service, empathy, and unwavering commitment to justice.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of Barack Obama. His story reminds us that leadership is not only measured by office or title, but by the positive impact one leaves on society. As listeners, we can carry forward these lessons in our own lives, embracing hope, resilience, and the responsibility to contribute to a better world, inspired by one of the most transformative leaders of our time.